Coming up on iOS today, Rosemary, Orchard, and I take a look at some of the best utility apps available on iOS. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This episode of iOS Today is brought to you by Imperfect Foods. Imperfect Foods is catching the food that's falling through the cracks of our food system by sourcing quirky yet delicious foods. Right now, Imperfect Foods is offering our listeners 20% off your first 4 orders when you go to imperfectfoods.com and use promo code iOS. And by BetterHelp. Join more than 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. As a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting betterhelp.com/iOS. It's time for the Twit Audience Survey. The annual survey helps us understand our audience so we can make your listening experience even better. It'll only take a few minutes. Go to twit.tv/survey22 to take it. Thanks. Ha-ha, hee-hee. Welcome to iOS Today, the show where we talk all things iOS, tvOS, watchOS, HomePodOS, iPadOS. Look, it's all the OSs that Apple has on offer, and we love to talk about them here on iOS Today. I am one of your hosts, Mikah Sargent.
And I'm Rosemary Orchard. Hi, everyone.
Hello, Rosemary. How are you today?
Oh, I'm excited, Mikah. I love utility apps, and turns out I have thousands of them on my phone. So I had to pick just a couple for today because, you said that we couldn't make the show last like 6 weeks. So, I picked
Unfortunately. Yes. It's interesting. I think utility is one of those categories that I personally have fun going through on the App Store and realizing, ooh, that's a nice tool to use. Ooh, that's a nice tool to use. But I don't think that people on the whole think a whole lot about utility apps. And when you do see what's out there and the handy features that they provide, it's a lot of fun. So I'm really excited to be talking about them today. The first two we're going to be talking about are some utility apps that I think a lot of people might need, but don't realize that this feature is available. And if it's okay, I'd like to start with mine because it's a simpler version of yours, which will kind of, I love the one that you picked because of how much it goes into depth. But the first thing we're talking about is screenshot stitching. So what you have is, let's say, let me figure out here. We'll go to So we'll go to a website like Twit. And maybe you want to be able to show more of the page. You've got this top part of the page, right? But there's all this underneath that you may want to be showing. Maybe you're on, a website for going on a hiking trail. And at the top of the page, there's information about the different amenities that are available. And then underneath that is the hiking trail map. And underneath that is the directions that you need to get there. And so you just want to send to your friend who's going hiking with you all of the information that you can get in one image so that they don't have to look at, 3, 4, 5 images. So what I would do is take a screenshot of the top of the page, scroll down a little bit, take another screenshot, scroll down a little bit, take another screenshot, scroll down a little bit, and take another screenshot. And then I'm going to do one more just so I can kind of come to the end here with that top news or tech news segment down at the bottom. And then I would launch my Tailor app, maybe, and hop into that. And then in Tailor, you can see that it automatically recognized that I was trying to stitch these photos together and then immediately provides for me a screenshot that is this full image. It's got all of the pieces here, and you can see it's in the proper order. It does this through some smarts, through some image recognition, and then also by paying attention to the order in which you took these screenshots. So Tailor makes this very simple. I can hit the trash icon in the top right to remove this. In the top left is a settings icon that's not important. And then down at the bottom is the share icon. So I can tap to see this and then scroll up at the end to automatically pop open the share sheet, and you can see I've got some options to send this photo to different people. And it says, this is the stitched image and the date and time at which it was stitched. And then I can send it out as I need to. So super simple. If you're looking for a way to stitch screenshots together and you just want a super, super, super simple app, that's Tailor. But what I love, and I should mention, it's free to download, $2.99 if you want to basically give the developer a shout out and say, hey, this is great. And then that also will remove the watermarks and ads that are part of the app by default. So $2.99, super inexpensive for a fantastic, simple pick or screenshot stitching application. Now, let's talk about a really powerful one that Rosemary and I both use as well whenever you want to get more in depth with your screenshot stitching.
Yeah, so I use an app called Pixo, and Pixo is a great app because it does what Tailor does, and it does a little bit more as well. So recently I took some photos in my app library, and Pixo has just recognized that when I opened it, and it's just stitched them together for me, which is really nice. And what I can do as well, if I need to, is I can actually adjust where it stitched things together. So I'll put that back together and scroll up a little bit. And you can see, if you're watching the video, that there are two lines across my screen, which are just yellow lines with a little pencil on them. And if you tap on it, then you can actually adjust where it stitched things together, which can be really nice if you do need to adjust something. Of course, now I've done this, I'm not going to be able to put it back together just as brilliantly as it was, but I'll do my best. So let's pretend that one's fine, but there's other options as well where you can add extra breaks and things like that, and then cropping the whole or just parts of images, which is really nice. But when you've done that with Pixo, or if you wanted to, you can also discard what you've done and just pick a single screenshot. And I'll pick one that I took of my home screen earlier. And this works for pictures too. And you can go into tools. And those of the eagle-eyed of you watching the video may have noticed that the battery and the time and stuff at the top immediately changed the second that I switched to tools. And that's because I've got Pixo running some magic for me, and that's my preferences. So if I tap on the magic wand, then I have clean status bar and remove scroll shot. So if I scroll this down and I turn off clean status bar and remove scroll shot and then tap it away, then it will actually ping that back. And I leave those on usually. But you can do more things as well. So a lot of people like taking screenshots for things and putting them in, say, documentation. Well, you could add a pretty blue iPhone to your screenshot so that people know that it's an iPhone. Or you can even change it to be a screenshot of an Apple Watch. And they've attempted to scale my iPhone screenshot onto a very tall Apple Watch here, because when you do scroll shots, it'll do the screenshot for you there as well. And so you end up with very long device frames, but that's by design. I'll just take the frame off for the time being and pop back to some of the other options. It also has blurring options. So if you've got something in your text, so say, for example, if the location was appearing here in the weather, it's not. But then I could actually blur that out. And there's a couple of different options. There's that blocky pixel look, but it's designed to be very difficult to reveal. There's the smear it approach, which gives you a lovely artistic effect, which may not be quite what you're after. And of course, then you also have the ability to just do a different kind of smear, which is less artistic, but still effective. And there's also just the option to just drag a whole little privacy sort of blurry section over whatever it is that you've taken a screenshot of, which is very nice. And I like that. There's undo options for all of these as well. And of course, then you have the ability to add some text. So I could say, hello, Mikah. If I could spell, I could say hello, Mikah, instead of hello, Milan. There we go. And I can put that anywhere I want. And of course, then I have the options I can go through. This is much like Instagram's text picker, where I can change things. So to look very Instagrammy if I want to. And of course, there's highlighting options as well. And what I really like about Pixo, though, is I don't need to do all of these settings every time. So I'm going to discard this and pop into the settings, because what you can do is under, I believe it's the advanced features. I am testing things now. That's the Pixo Pro. But you can somewhere, and I've forgotten how, set it up to automatically do whatever your preferences are. So you can have default preferences for watermarks if you want them. So you can say that if you want a watermark on every image and what that watermark would be. So I could say, hello is my watermark, and then put it somewhere on every image and choose what color it will be, and so on and so forth. There's export options, so you can specify if you want things saved as PNGs or hike images, lossless compression, and so on and so forth. There's also the option to save things as PDFs, which can be really, really handy if you want to. And I really love this. It's a free app to download, and then it's $1.99 to unlock the extra features in the app, which are very useful. There's also things like scroll shot recording and web snapshot. And I love the web snapshot feature, but I do think that there's something that we might have missed talking about, Mikah, when we were taking screenshot in Safari, because there is a little utility built into Safari that I think many people might not know about. So if I take a screenshot here and then I tap on my screenshot, I can switch to full page. And this will take a moment. My Wi-Fi, unfortunately, today is not playing up a little bit. But if you do this, then you actually get or should get a screenshot of the entire web page. So I'll go back to the Twit homepage. Oh, no, my Safari is hanging on my phone again, unfortunately. But this is a really useful feature that you can use in Safari and a few other apps that support it. But of course, if you are taking screenshots of anything else and you need to stitch them together, then, you know, something like Pixo or Tailor are great options for that.
I'll show this feature really quick. So I take a screenshot of the page, I tap on the preview, and then up at the top, there's an option for screen or full page. If I tap full page, then you'll see that it shows the full page here. I can scroll down and make sure I truly did capture the full page. Yes, I can crop it if I only want part of that full page. So maybe I only want it to the end of the most recent shows. I'll tap done, and now it has this full page. From there, I've got the share sheet to share it out as I want to. I can annotate it down at the bottom with different things, or I can just tap done to save it to my photo library. So very nice. And that is, yes, a relatively new feature that I think a lot of folks aren't aware of, that the full page screenshotting ability has been added to iOS, which simplifies things quite a bit. I think Pixo is amazing for the different annotation abilities that are built into the application that kind of take it, Tailor's good for just super quick getting that out. But if you want to take time to edit and add notes right there, then Pixo is a really handy app. And it's honestly the one that I use most frequently when I am doing screenshot stitching. All right, let's say I want to give my eyes a break when I am scrolling websites later in the day, early evening, and some pages just don't offer a dark mode. What do I do, Rosemary?
Well, there's a couple of different things you can do. And the first trick, of course, is to find a website that doesn't have dark mode enabled. And I, of course, went to DuckDuckGo and forgot DuckDuckGo does have dark mode enabled, which is a shame. So I'm just going to open, hopefully Google is going to load here. But when you're in light mode, your phone is really bright and all pages are white. And sometimes that is not the effect that you're going for. And so if I switch back maybe to Dordle, which is Wordle with two words, then they do actually have a dark mode on this web page. But if I switch into just dark mode, it doesn't switch the page automatically. And those of you who are watching will see that my Safari has gone dark, but the page hasn't. And what I can do is if I manage my extensions, I have a great app installed called Noir. And Noir is available. You can use it on iPhone and iPad. And there's also a separate download on the Mac, which does the same thing. And all it does is dark mode in Safari. And now that I have Noir, I can enable it and I can turn it auto on. And then it will, when the page reloads, unfortunately, my Wi-Fi is really playing up for my phone today. I'm not sure what's up there. It will actually turn it into dark mode. And this is great. And not only that, but there are bonus settings as well inside of Noir, which I can show people. And so I have it enabled. And so I've enabled it automatically for this website, and that's the default setting. But I can actually say, for example, if it doesn't recognize that a website is already dark, I can turn it off for a particular website, or I can say I want it always on for this website. Whatever happens. So I can put that back to default. And then I have different theme options as well. So there's dark, and then there's black, and then there's also gray, and they're varying different levels of darkness. So I usually use the default. And one of my favorite parts of this, it has dim images. And so if you go to a website and, for example, they have, it's a beautiful shop, but they've taken pictures of their products on white backgrounds and they're not transparent backgrounds. And so then you open it up and Noir's done a great job darkening things, but there are these really bright white rectangles. Actually, well, it can dim those images for you, which is nice. And all of these are per website configurable. And you can also disable things until tomorrow. And if something goes wrong, you can report an issue with the website to let the developer know. And I have to say, I do really love Dordle. I really do love Noir. It's $2.99 as a one-time purchase, and it really is great. It really does a great job of making websites that don't already have dark mode dark.
Indeed. All right. I'm going to give a quick shout out to one of my favorite utility apps that I talk a lot about, and then we'll take a break. So I just wanted to mention Do. Do is the reminder app that I use as a person with ADHD. Do is my life-saving app because it is an app that does not let you forget a task. If you put a task into Do, it will keep reminding you over and over and over and over again until you complete that task. And you can set different times. So every 15 minutes bug me, every 5 minutes bug me, every 30 minutes bug me. Just yesterday, for example, I needed to do some work stuff that comes up every like 2 times a month, I think. And so it has to be done on a specific day 2 times a month. And I was in the middle of something whenever I first got the reminder. And so I said, hey, snooze that, remind me later. It reminded me again. I was in the middle of something else, so I had it remind me again. And then that third time I was able to get to it and get it finished. It is a fantastic app. It's $7.99 in the App Store, which for some folks might seem a little bit expensive, but I cannot recommend it enough. Like, it is so handy at what it does. It is so good at what it does. And without Do, I would get nothing done. And I would also not do the things that I need to do for myself in a given day. So I just really love Do. It's fantastic. And I think it rocks. All right. Something else that rocks is our first sponsor for iOS Today this week. And that is Imperfect Foods. Every day, delicious groceries fall through the cracks of our food system. Why? Well, it's because of how they look. Imperfect Foods is turning this around by sourcing quirky yet delicious foods and delivering them to you in a way proven to reduce emissions. What if getting your favorite groceries put time back into your week instead of taking it away? With the weather getting colder outside, you can stay cozy inside and let Imperfect Foods deliver you intentionally sourced groceries with just a few clicks. Imperfect Foods is a grocery delivery service offering an entire line of sustainable groceries that taste delicious and reduce waste. Did you know? In the last year, 35% of the food supply went unsold or uneaten in the U.S., 35%. Visit imperfectfoods.com to see if they deliver in your area. Once you sign up, you can personalize your weekly grocery order with fresh seasonal produce, pantry staples, and yummy snacks. Plus, your order will arrive on the same day each week. That's super handy because it makes planning much easier. On average, Imperfect Foods customers save 6 to 8 pounds of food with every order. And unlike on-demand delivery companies, Imperfect delivers weekly by neighborhood. That's a unique model that produces 25 to 75% fewer emissions than individual trips to the grocery store. Plus, you get to say goodbye to packaging guilt. Love this. Imperfect Foods is the only national grocery delivery company that makes it easy to return your packaging after every order. I went online, found out they delivered in our area, which is good, so that I was able to give it a go. And they sent me a couple of boxes of Imperfect Foods over the course of a couple of weeks. And boy, howdy, was it fun. I remember getting the box the first day, and I got a notification, hey, your box is going to be delivered. I happened to open the door as the delivery person was leaving, and it was an Imperfect Foods truck or van, and got my delivery upstairs, opened it up, and I was so excited, just pulling things out. I felt a little bit like Mary Poppins, just pulling all this yummy produce out of the box, and it just kept coming out. And then there was also a whole pumpkin pie in the box. I was blown away. Amazing. I still have one of the boxes included some pantry stuff, including seasoning. And so there was some salt there. I've got some sea salt from Imperfect Foods. So lots of incredible stuff. There's so much fun stuff. And depending on what you add, like the snacks, you may end up really enjoying those. Super fun to get Imperfect Foods. And honestly, they say quirky yet delicious. I thought I was going to get some really bumpy, odd-looking food, and most of it looked how I expected it to look. It was fine. It wasn't anything where my brain was telling me don't eat that because it looked odd or something like that. Everything was still its own perfect beauty, as it were. So right now, Imperfect Foods is offering our listeners, that's you, 20% off your first 4 orders. Your first 4 orders when you go to imperfectfoods.com and use the promo code iOS. Again, 20% off your first 4 orders. That's up to an $80 value at imperfectfoods.com when you use the promo code iOS. Seriously, go there. Check it out because I think you'll have a lot of fun. Even if you just give it a go, see if it's for you. There's so much good, delicious food you can get out of it. imperfectfoods.com, promo code iOS. Thank you, Imperfect Foods, for sponsoring this week's episode of iOS Today. Let's head back into the utilities with Rosemary's next pick.
Well, my next pick is more of an accessory, and it's available on iPhone and iPad, but really it's best used with a Mac, and that is Transloader. Transloader is a great application which allows you to just download something on your Mac. So I don't actually have it set up yet on this iPad because I wasn't intending to use this iPad, but rebooting my phone means that I had to connect my iPad. And when you set it up, it needs you to install on an iPhone or on an iPhone, Mac, or just Macs. You can use it just between Macs. And you set it up, and the whole point is that you can download things to your Mac from your iPhone, and you can set it up to send you notifications for things. And so I've got something that I recently downloaded on my laptop, and I can even copy the link, and I sent this to Transloader from my iPhone. And then I can go to my devices and I can add this link and I can say, hey, I want to download this on my work MacBook Pro, on the iMac that's sitting here, and I'll download it on the Mac Mini build server. And I can even see the current status. So, for example, the Mac Mini build server will download this instantly, but the other two won't. And that's because this one's currently got it disabled because I'm doing iOS today and I don't want any unnecessary downloads going on. And my work MacBook is asleep over to my left. And so when I tap download, it's going to send it off to it, and then it will just get on and do it. And I really love this because there's nothing worse than ending up with a task list of things that you wanted to download on your device, and then you actually didn't download them, and then you don't have great Wi-Fi or something, or, you know, the moment has passed. So being able to just grab that thing that you wanted and download it is great. I really love the fact that Transloader works in the share sheet on my iPhone, but it also detects links on my clipboard. And it's from the same developer who makes Yoink, which is an excellent shelf app for the iPad. Works great on the iPhone as a temporary dumping ground for files as well. And of course, that one's on the Mac too. And it just works really, really well to just send the file wherever it needs to go.
Yep. I have Transloader installed on my devices as well. It's such a fantastic app. I think it's a little bit more of a power user tool, but that's A-okay. I like that there are some utilities on iOS, iPadOS that are for folks who do things a little bit differently or do things a little bit more classically in some ways, and that those tools are available to us and available to use when we need them. So Transloader, I think, fits in that box. It's free in the App Store?
Yes. So the iOS app is, of course, completely free because it's an accessory to the main app, which is, I believe, a $7.99 download on the Mac. So that's available there.
Excellent. All right. I am excited about this next one as well because I don't know about you, but I really like Apple's Wallet app. I like that I can double tap the side button on my iPhone and bring up the different passes that I have. When I used to live in the Midwest, Walgreens was more available than CVS. And so Walgreens had this really great integration with the Wallet app where it would be able to use my Walgreens card at the same time as I made my Apple Pay purchase. So I would be able to make the purchase using Apple Pay, but it would go ahead and link that up with my Walgreens card and, do all of the deals and discounts and whatnot that came with that. Very handy. Unfortunately, CVS seems to be the one that wins out here in Petaluma. So it's not as, I don't use that one as much, but I've got other passes, including my vaccine information in the Apple Wallet app. And occasionally, just for fun, I will use this app that Rosemary is going to talk about to make some passes when I need them. Tell us about MakePass.
Yeah, so MakePass is a great app that allows you to make passes for the Apple Wallet. And so what you can do is just start by making a new pass and you can add all the information, set everything up. But there's also another option to open things from the wallet, open files. So if you've saved one and you want to come back to it later, you can do that. And you can also just start by importing a barcode. And there's a great option to capture a barcode. So I happen to have some pens here, which have got a nice barcode on them. And so it accesses your camera and then you can scan in the barcode. And this is going to be a little tricky for it to do because, of course, this is in a shiny plastic, but that's the iPhone barcode scanner for you. Let's try turning on the flash. And there we go. Perfect. So I've now captured the barcode. Of course, I'm assuming that you'd be doing something like a work ID or similar for this, but I'm going to make a fake pilot friction for this. So it didn't detect the barcode because of the shiny plastic, and that's my fault. I should have picked a better barcode to have on hand. But you can give it a title. So I'm going to call this pilot friction because I love those pens. And then I'll put it in the Rocketbook organization because that's what I use them with. And I can give this a description if I want, but I don't have to. I will set a background color of a gorgeous dark purple. Let's set a foreground color of a nice light blue and a label color. I'm going to go with bright orange because I hope that's really going to stand out. Now, icon images, I am just going to select a photo and I'll pick that beautiful screenshot of my my App Store from earlier. And I will leave the logo blank for now. And I will set a barcode. Now, if I'd succeeded in capturing the barcode, which I can give it another try and maybe it'll work this time. We'll see. Let's just try like that and see if it can do it. No, it can't do it because of the shiny plastic. But if you have something with an actual barcode on, then it will be able to do it. Other than that, you can define a custom barcode, or if you've got a photo of one or something, then you can actually just import those in here. So if you pick a photo, then you can actually just say that photo has got a barcode in it, and it will look for the barcode in that. You've got different types of passes. So you can say it's a boarding pass for planes, trains, buses, boats, whatever it is. A generic card, a store card, a coupon card, event cards. And when you change these, the information below changes as to what you might want. And what I really love is when you create something like, for example, an event ticket, you can say the expiration date. I always set this to the day after, just in case, because it's nice having these things around afterwards. But say I was creating something for the birthday lunch that I'm going out for with my grandmother on Sunday, I could set it to expire on Monday. Can set a relevant location, so I could try and pick somewhere in the UK. I'll pick Birmingham because that's nice and far away from me. And hopefully that will actually, there we go, autocomplete Birmingham. And very specific. Yes, that will do perfectly. Right there. Done. Love it. And then it'll pop up whenever I get to that location. And you can add extra fields on the front and the back. You can associate apps with it. And of course, you can preview this as you go. So if you create something with lots of beautiful detail in, then you can actually see how it looks. And if you need to add more fields, then you've got the option of adding extra fields. So I can say this field has this value, and I am just typing in some very basic things so that you can see where that appears. And you can go through and add more if you want. You can add things on the front. You can also set it up so that if you want to, you can flip over to the back. So I'm going to put back is here. And then when we preview, then if I add it to my wallet, and then I should just be able to pop quickly into my wallet, then I can tap to the pilot friction, and then I should be able to tap it over. But I guess because it's not got a barcode on, because I haven't finished it, I'm not able to do that. But I can easily go back to the app and keep going. And I can just do whatever I need to create a great wallet pass. And of course, I can save them if I wanted to and import them. There's so much that you can do. And of course, because this is here, I can just open it from the wallet and go back to editing it at any time. So if that color's off and I decide, actually, no, it's more of that purple. Yep, that's good. I can add it and then it's updated. And then anytime later, go back and open it from the wallet. And it's the latest version.
Yes. Someone in the chat asked if it works with QR codes as well. It does.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful app in its sort of openness, but with that comes the need to kind of do lots of work on customizing it. So just be aware that there is a lot of information that you need to enter, but in doing so, you get so much out of it. You can create so many different kinds of passes. And then what I love is that, there may be, you get those tags that you're supposed to keep on your keychain for different grocery stores and gas stations and stuff like that. And those are so annoying, hate having them. So this makes it very handy to turn those into digital passes that you can just keep in your phone instead of having to do it on a keychain. The next one I want to talk about is Annotable. Annotable is an annotation app that is a beast of an app available on the App Store. It's free to download to unlock all of the features. It's $9.99, but I think after you see it in use, you'll be like, oh, okay, I could totally spend the money on that app, because this is the annotation app, in my opinion, to end all annotation apps. It is the one. So I've got this page here, rosemaryorchard.com, and there's some text and some images that I want to work with. And down in the bottom right-hand corner is the button for the different annotations that are available. Starting from the top, you've got a simple crop feature, which has snapping built into it. So it's sort of, you'll feel an actual, what is that word now? I'm forgetting. Haptic feedback. Yes, thank you. The next one is a zoom icon. This is actually technically called Loop, L-O-U-P-E, which I'll show in a second. Next, you've got different options for blurring or obscuring text on the screen. There are two of them. The one on the left is for drawing out the part that you want to obscure. The one on the right is for making a shape that will blur or obscure. Below that, on the far left, is a redact option. So that will just be a black bar that redacts text. There's a highlighter option, which lets you use your finger or a stylus, whatever you want to do, to highlight things on the screen. That can be anything. The next option is a text option, so you can add text to the screen. And then the final option in that fourth row is a highlight text option. This is different from highlighter because it will recognize text on the screen, and then as you move your finger across, it will highlight that text. Below that, you've got an option to scribble lines as you want to on the page, then a line tool on its own, and then an arrow tool. Below that are circle, square, and rounded rectangle options. And then below that is one of my favorite features, which lets you make part of the page sort of not blurred out, but darkened, and then part of the page that you're wanting to show in full brightness. So I'm going to start at the bottom because I think that's a really easy to use and understand tool. I'll choose the square, and then I will zoom out a little bit so that I've got some room to move my finger around on the outside of the page. And I will tap on the left and then drag over to select this part of the paragraph. Now, check out what just happened if you're watching. If you're listening, I have not lifted my finger off of the page yet. While your finger is still placed on the page, the app will show you a zoomed in, like a magnifier of the place where your finger is currently selecting on the page. This gives you incredibly precise ability to get that annotation exactly where you want it. I can let go, and now you'll see that this part of the page is selected and shown in full brightness while the rest of the page is darkened. I'm going to go farther now. I'm going to use the text highlighter tool, and I am going to highlight "Time is hard." Once again, if I hold down my finger and start to move, well, whoops, it's selected. It selected the annotation. So there we go. "Time is hard." And I'll let that go. I'm going to bring that annotation back up. And what I want to do is select the highlight that I just did. Now in the bottom left are the different controls that I have. There's blue, yellow, green, basically any kind of highlight you want to do, you can choose. And so I will make that green. And you can also set custom colors if you want to with the settings option at the very end. From there, I want to go ahead and redact the image. So I will tap, and then I will choose the 1, 2, 3 from the fourth row, the one on the right, which is the sort of draw a square image. What I love about this too is that there are different options. So in the bottom left-hand corner, I can choose different kinds of redaction or blurring. There's the top option is just a black square. Then there's a Gaussian blur. Then there's a mosaic that is sort of polygonal mosaic. There's a square mosaic or pixelation. And then below that is my favorite one, which is a hexagonal mosaic. I like to choose a pretty big hexagonal mosaic because the bigger it is, the less information there is available. And for anyone who's ever seen those studies and case studies would be the best word for it, that show artificial intelligence being able to, and computer vision algorithms being able to pick out what is behind an image. The bigger those mosaics are, the less information that that algorithm is going to have to be able to determine what was actually behind that image that you have. So I don't like to use Gaussian blurs or Gaussian blurs, depending on how you like to pronounce it, because those ones seem to be pretty easy to fool. I like to use one of the mosaic options. And as I said, I tend to use the hexagonal mosaic, but this polygonal mosaic is really cool because it will just have different randomized polygons so that there's even less data available. So I'll go ahead and downsize that so you can tell what that is with the smallest size there. And then I will zoom back out. And last but not least, I will draw an arrow to the word "more so." And again, I put my finger down so I can see right where I want to point. I let that go. "More so" is highlighted. And then I'm going to just do a quick little loop here on the O in Rosemary Orchard. And there are a couple of options with the loop. There's the blue circle on the outside, which lets you change the size of the loop itself. You can change the magnification in the bottom left corner, or you can do what I like to do, which is to take that circle in the middle and then draw an arrow out from it to point to the area that you're trying to point to. So now we've got the O specifically picked out. I can move that up and out of the way. And I'll actually, tapping on the arrowhead lets me choose a different option if I want to, including numbered options, which is really handy. So a very, very, very powerful tool that I absolutely adore. That is Annotable in the App Store, and it is just incredible. Again, free to download if you want to unlock all of the tools, $9.99 for all of those tools. As I said, I think well worth it for the even just alone for the ability to blur out or, as I said, mosaic out some images in the screenshots that you take. All right, we are going to take another quick break before we come back with just a couple other utilities, and then we will head into the news. Before that, though, I want to tell you about BetterHelp. you may have heard about BetterHelp. I think BetterHelp is awesome. I just have a question for you. Is something preventing you from achieving your goals? What interferes with your happiness? Well, ask yourself those questions and then check out BetterHelp.com/iOS. So I went on to BetterHelp, and when you sign up for BetterHelp, you start out by answering some questions. There are some questions that anyone who's ever sought therapy before will be, they'll be familiar to them, because there are those kind of standard questions that are sort of gauging your mental health. There are questions about you yourself. And then what I love is that there are some questions that are more personal, but are important in helping you find a therapist, or rather helping a therapist find you, that can help out. So questions about sort of your identity, your values, things that you are into, all sorts of stuff. And in doing so, what that does is it helps the therapists on BetterHelp decide if they would be able to help you. So they can kind of look and see and go, oh yeah, this person is definitely someone that I would be able to help, and that our values align. So it's going to make it easier for us to converse. And it's really quite awesome. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. You can connect in a safe and private online environment, and it's so convenient that you can start communicating in under 48 hours. I definitely was able to start communicating in under 48 hours. My therapist and I, our first conversation involved, she ended up talking about the relationship between sort of emotions and quantum mechanics and quantum physics. And immediately I thought, oh my God, this nerdy person is perfect. I love nerds. And so it was just the perfect match. It worked out for me. And it's important to note, it's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It is actual professional counseling done securely online. You can send a message to your counselor anytime. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses. Plus, you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions, and that's all without ever having to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change counselors if you need to. It's more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available. The service is available for clients worldwide, and you can find the particular expertise you need online. So that means you don't have to limit yourself to the counselors that are located near you. You'll find licensed professional counselors who are specialized in depression, stress, anxiety, relationships, also sleeping. That's a really big thing right now. Trauma, anger, family conflicts, LGBTQ matters, grief, self-esteem, all sorts of stuff. Anything you share is confidential, but it's also convenient, professional, and affordable. Check out the testimonials posted daily on their site. In fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they are recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states. We want you to start living a happier life today. As a listener, you're going to get 10% off your first month by visiting our sponsor at betterhelp.com/iOS. Join more than 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/iOS. BetterHelp.com/iOS. Check it out. And super grateful to BetterHelp for sponsoring this week's episode of iOS Today. All right, Rosemary, tell us about your last two utilities before we head into the news.
Yeah. So the first one that I want to talk about is a very small one. If you've got an Apple Watch or a HomePod, you might think, I can already create multiple timers. So why would I need to be able to do it on the iPhone? But for those people who don't have a HomePod or an Apple Watch, or just want to be able to see those timers count down in one place, there's a great app called Just Timers. And as the name implies, it's just timers, but there are multiple timers. So you can have multiple things going at the same time. And it's got some other great features as well. It supports dark mode as well as light mode, of course. And you can have it prevent auto lock when you have active timers. And this is a feature I use all the time because I put my iPhone in the kitchen while I'm cooking. And you can see I've got a salmon timer ready for later. I'm going to have some salmon for dinner. And so I'll be able to start that. And while that's running, I'll be able to create a rice timer for my rice, and then I'll be able to cook that for the 12 minutes. And then I can run that at the same time. And I can see what's going on, and that I don't have enough time to do my nail polish because, you know, I've got 11 minutes and 54 seconds left. But I really like it. I really like how easy it is to reset a timer and just have it keep going. Or if I wanted to, I can change my preferences to say that it should pause the timer when I restart it, which can be very useful if that's what you prefer. There's different sounds. And of course, it's got shortcut support because I do love shortcuts. So you can create and pause timers and so on and so forth through shortcuts because, that's pretty handy. But the other app that I wanted to talk about is something that's a little bit more niche, perhaps, but equally is a great one to know that exists because there's going to be somebody in your life at some point who's going to need this. And that's Laundry Lens. And Laundry Lens is a great app for looking at the label on some clothes. And I can just put it there, keep it steady, maybe turn on the flash, and there we go. Now I can see the instructions. So this says, do not bleach, tumble dry, low heat up to 55 degrees. Yep, that seems about right. And low ironing heat up to about 110. That's correct as well. And it's just figured this out from the label on the new hoodie that I have here. And I just pointed at it. What you also have is the ability to just go and look at all of the symbols that you might find on laundry. And you can see here it's highlighted the ones that I found or it found on that laundry label. And so if I wanted to look like, what are these ones? What is this? Well, I can identify that I've seen it and I can, go back and look at the instructions as well. So if that one was there, then when I swipe back down a little bit, then I can see the instructions, which says machine wash, water temperature up to 40 degrees, delicate. That's what that symbol means. I really like it. It's simple, it's basic, but it's a great app to know exists. And also for those situations where you encounter some weird symbol on some clothes, what does this mean? Well, it's a free app, so you can download it. And if you know anybody who's going to be doing their own laundry anytime soon, or maybe ought to start doing their own laundry, you can recommend it for them as well.
Hint, hint. It's a good hint. Yeah, I'm giving you this so you know.
Yeah.
Excellent. All righty, folks. That brings us to the end of the first segment. I hope you found some awesome utility apps. Hey, if you have some utility apps that you like to use that we didn't get to today, let us know. We'd love to hear about them. And also let us know if you use any of these and you're really into them. Let us move on to the news segment today. I was gathering notes for MacBreak Weekly this morning, and I came across kind of a breaking news story that is really exciting. This had been rumored for a while. I think it was Bloomberg's Mark Gurman who had first noted that this was going to be happening, and now it's here. Apple has announced its new tap to pay on iPhone system that's going to be coming later this year. The news report, the news release says that U.S. merchants will be able to accept Apple Pay and other contactless payments simply by using iPhone and a partner-enabled iOS app. So there are going to be specific apps that will be able to make use of this. But what that means is that an iPhone, credit and debit cards, and then other digital wallets, that probably means Google Pay, or is it Android Pay? I don't know what it's currently called. All of those will be able to work with the iPhone using NFC technology. So any kind of, or most, I should say, any digital wallet applications or credit or debit cards that have tap to pay enabled will be able to use this. And yes, it looks like, thank you to Scooter X in the chat. Stripe is already taking signups for this program, which is set to release in the spring. So Stripe will be one of these apps that one of these partner apps will be able to use this. So that is really, I think, pretty exciting because it will mean that it's going to take a lot less for merchants to be able to accept these different types of digital payments, where before you'd have to buy like a kiosk and you'd have to get all of these different specialized tools, all that kind of stuff. This just means that a person with an iPhone and this app can use it to do purchases, to accept contactless payments right there. So I'm really jazzed about this in the sense that it opens up more people to be able to take payments that maybe they wouldn't have been able to before, or where it was cost prohibitive. This makes it a little bit simpler.
Yeah, because previously, even in the Apple Store, you've been able to buy like card readers that you can connect to your phone or your iPad that you can use to process payments. But of course, The downside of that is then you buy a card reader and you're very much tied into that payment provider. Whereas, of course, with your iPhone, everyone knows how easy it is to download an app. The app itself is going to be free, of course. They're not going to cut off their nose to spite their face by making you pay to download the app. So you'll be able to even try out different systems and have multiple different people for whatever it is that you're doing, which I think is really great. And I'm glad that people won't have to resort to Apple Pay Cash, which is still not available to those of us outside the US.
Indeed. All right. What else do we have for news?
Yeah, well, Apple had a pretty great record quarter, but womp, 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 iPad shipments fell. But apparently the share of Apple's or the tablet market has still been increased in proportion to Apple. So they still have a very, very, very large chunk, which is not exactly a surprise for the world's first $3 trillion company. But yes, it appears after their release last week with the quarterly results that they have actually been sort of self-sabotaging the iPad sales in that they've been taking the chips to put into iPhones because they're prioritizing the iPhones. And of course, as most people are aware, there is a shortage of the chips available to create devices. So it's not surprising that Apple has a slightly limited supply, but they're still doing pretty well. And I have to say, I think the adorability of this iPad mini has probably helped them out there somewhat because it is really adorable. I took this out with me at the weekend and it was great because, you know, tiny little iPad mini with an Apple Pencil, but it was perfect for taking notes and stuff on and drawing up a kitchen plan as I was in IKEA looking at the different units.
All right. Let's see. Anything else that we want to talk about?
Well, I thought it was interesting that South by Southwest is coming back to an in-person festival format in March, and it's going to feature 3 Apple TV Plus premieres. And so there is going to be a dramatic adaptation of the novel Shining Girls, which has Jared Leto and Anne Hathaway in, and some others. But Apple are very much, unsurprisingly, as they've been, entering for everything, putting themselves front and center on this, which is interesting to see. And I don't know how South by Southwest will go. I've never been, but we'll find out.
Yes, indeed. It's an interesting choice, but alas. And then last but not least, today, 512 Pixels. We know 512 Pixels, Stephen Hackett. Has linked to a post about Apple's 27%. Or no, rather,
Yeah.
I see now. Yeah, go ahead and introduce this. I think you'll do a better job.
Yeah. So some of you will remember a little while ago, we talked about how the Netherlands had passed a law that said that dating apps on the App Store have to be able to accept payments from other providers. So they don't have to use Apple's payment system that's done through the App Store like everything else does. Now, this is a very narrow use case of just dating apps for the Netherlands, but they've been pretty serious about it. They've been actively fining Apple for not complying already. And Apple have finally released some information about how this is going to be working and so on. And the way that it's going to be done is in very large text. It will say in the app that it is, what was the exact word? This app does not support Apple's App Store's private and secure payment system. All purchases in app name will be managed by the developer name. Your managed App Store payment method and related features such as subscription management and refund requests will not be available. Only purchases through the App Store are secured by Apple. And as Federico Fetici has quoted as saying, it is very user hostile. They're implying that every other payment method is not secure. Now, I can see why they're doing this. It astounds me every day whenever my parents say, oh yeah, I bought this thing online, but it's not shown up yet. Like, do you know anything about XYZ, blah, 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 .xyz? And it's like, wait, you bought something from a .xyz URL? Okay, that's not a normal URL. And then you do some digging. It's like, okay, you need to go make a chargeback with your credit card company and possibly, get your credit card replaced. Because I don't think these people are actually going to ship you whatever it is that you bought. People are incredibly trusting when it comes to things. So I can see why Apple's doing this, but it does feel very much in your face the way that they are doing this with this very large, in front of you pop-up. as soon as you open the app. It's not unlike when you are beta testing an app on test flight and there's release notes. It pops up before you can do anything in the app to show you this. And it'll be interesting to see whether or not this stays around or whether or not this changes. But you apparently have to put this in the app, and it has to be a separate version of the app that doesn't support the App Store payments. So you have to have two versions of your app on the App Store, is what they had previously said. So we're going to find out how this works and whether or not the Dutch regulators are in favor or against.
Indeed. We'll have to see how this all plays out. All right, folks, I can hear the music. It's time for Shortcuts Corner. This is the part of the show where you write in with your shortcuts requests, and Rosemary Orchard, the shortcuts expert, provides some answers. Chris has written in, I need to tag project correspondences with long strings of texts as identifiers. I currently use a shortcut to pick these strings from a menu, but I have a large number of them and it is cumbersome to enter them individually each time. Is there a way to use shortcuts and Airtable to create a menu from the strings in Airtable that will then be copied to the clipboard upon selection? Thank you for your help and all you do. I never miss an episode. Oh, Chris, that's so nice. Airtable. If there's one thing, maybe there are, I don't know, 4 or 5 words that you and Matthew say a lot. Drafts, Airtable, shortcuts. And so I know that Airtable is one of those really popular things for you automator folks. Tell us, can you actually tell folks first about what Airtable is and then go into your answer here?
Yeah. So Airtable is a great online database system where you can just put data in all sorts of formats. So I'll just pop open the app on my phone. It's a web service. So the app isn't the most amazing app in the world, but it works for what we need it for. And I'll just open the sample base here that I have. And so what you can do in Airtable is you have a database called a base, and it has multiple tables. So anybody who's familiar with a regular database like MySQL or something will kind of see where we're going. So you have, it's a table. I've called this one data, and it's got 2 columns in it. And if I expand my record, then I can see the first field is called name. It's got Mikah, and then notes say is magical. And if we go back, then I can also see, Anthony is amazing and Burke is brilliant because I did a little prep on this one for the show. So it's a great way to be able to store information. You can add multiple tables and you can customize the fields in them. When you create a table, there are blueprints that you can take things from. So, for example, sales or, whatever it is that you're doing. If I try to create a new base, then it gives you some examples. There's PR and marketing, groups and clubs, all sorts of things. So it's a great way to store information, and you can do collaboration. You can do fancy formula fields, all sorts. And so Airtable is probably a great place for Chris to store a lot of information. But before we get data from Airtable, I did just want to give people a little bit of an overview, because it sounds to me like Chris is making the same kind of thing that I did very early on, which is you choose from a menu. But what happens when you choose from a menu? This is the standard menu. I've just dropped it into an empty shortcut. And so I tap 1 and nothing happens. And if I copy this to my clipboard, there's nothing here. And if I actually want some text from this, then I have to put it in here. And so if I tap 1 and I want to get the text 1, I need to input this. And you can already see it's going to be very annoying, very difficult to maintain. I can at least rearrange things in my menu, so I could add another text option. So if for example, if I duplicate this one and then I just drag it in there, then I can have 2. But if I forget to change it, then it's going to be difficult. And I've made a typo there on purpose, because if I tap 2 now, I'm getting twee. And that's not what we want. This is not what we want. A choose from menu is a great option if you're putting actions in it, different actions that should happen. But we're probably looking for something more like a choose from list. And a list action in shortcuts gives you what you choose. So if I choose from this list, I've got a choice of hello and cookies. When I tap cookies, I get cookies. Unfortunately, chocolate chip cookies are not magically arriving on my desk, but the word cookies is here, and I can use the copy to clipboard action to copy this to my clipboard so that when I do this and I choose cookies, well, cookies is on my clipboard ready to go. But what if I want to choose cat and get meow, for example? This is where you can get a little bit fancier. So you can use a dictionary for this. And a dictionary in shortcuts and programming terms is very similar to a dictionary that you have on the shelf. You know, you look up aardvark and you get the description of an aardvark or whatever it is that you've put in under that word. So I've got this, which gives me that, and cat, which gives me meow. And if I add something else, then I could add, for example, Mikah and put in the text Sargent, and I'm going to misspell that. There we go. And so now if I choose, I select Mikah, and this time I get Sargent. And this is already a lot easier to use because now if I put a copy to clipboard action here, I get just the word Sargent. And that's probably closer to what Chris is looking for here, which is, of course, wonderful. And so I've done it. I've created an example for getting things from Airtable. So there's two shortcuts here. One which I actually am going to be using for the demo, and then the other one which is in the show notes because I do things a little bit differently. So to start with, if you're going to talk to Airtable, it doesn't have shortcuts actions. Now, there is an app called Shortcutify, which is hiding from me on this iPhone, of course, which does have Airtable actions, but it's a little tricky to set up and walk people through. And honestly, learning to use a simple, well-documented API and shortcuts can really, really make what you can do with your phone and just the tap of a button or two a lot more powerful. And Airtable's API, so this, for example, if I go back and I go back to the sample base, so this is something I created today. It's a base with just two columns in, and there is an API page that's been created for this on Airtable's website for me. I have to be logged in, but if I go to api.airtable.com, then I can pick my base, and it's got everything documented there. And that is great because it makes it super easy to create a shortcut, or at least as far as, creating shortcuts is easy for you. Right. So what we're going to do for this is we're going to build the dictionary, just like I showed you in the last shortcut where you could tap on Mikah and get Sargent, or tap on this and get that, tap cat, get meow. So we're going to create one of those. So I actually start by just putting an empty dictionary here and setting a variable called magic list. And you're going to need an Airtable API key to talk to Airtable. So when you tap on the link to the shortcut in the show notes and import it, it's going to ask you for your Airtable API key. It's also going to ask you for the link of the API URL for your base and your table. And then when you import that, when you input that information, it'll pull it all in for you and make it into a customized shortcut.
Wow.
At least as far as I can. I actually store my Airtable API key in Datajar, which means that I can show it on screen and not worry that anybody's actually going to see the API key because it just gets it from credentials Airtable. And so what we need to do is we need to do a get contents of URL. And when we're talking to Airtable, as we talk to a lot of APIs, we need to send it something that goes, "Hi, I'm me. You can trust that this is okay to give me the data back." So we send it an authorization header with bearer space and then the actual API token, which I'm getting from a variable. Again, if you import it, then it will be set up automatically if you input that information. And then we need to get data out of what's sent back to us. So what they send back to us is, in shortcuts terms, a dictionary. It's a JSON structure, which is a JavaScript object notation. Now, the fact that it's JSON is great because shortcuts uses JSON for dictionaries, which means we can get dictionary from our input. And it knows that this is a dictionary, so it lets me get the records, and the records contain the data. And so then I can go through and I need to get the fields out of the records and get the name and the notes. So if you remember here in my Airtable, if I look at the Mikah record, the name is Mikah and the notes is magical. Name and notes are the names of my two columns. And then I'm putting these into my dictionary. And then I'm choosing from the list. So now I need to run this. And it's giving me some options here, Mikah. See, I've got Burke is brilliant, Anthony is amazing, and Mikah is magical. That's the data from my Airtable. And so if I tap on Mikah, then the text that I get is magical because, of course, shortcuts really can produce magic for people. And there's a link to this one and the list and the dictionary as examples for everybody in the show notes, because I know lists and dictionaries and menus, they're a bit complicated and they sound very similar. So I wouldn't blame anybody for getting confused. Sometimes I pick the wrong one to start with, even though I'm a developer as my day job. But there's a lot you can do with this. And of course, with using something like a web service like Airtable, you can really end up with a lot of power and just pull in the little bits that you need on your phone to make your life easier.
Awesome. All right. One more. This is just a little bit of feedback. Thomas, who wanted their radiator to turn on 15 minutes before their alarm went off, wrote back to Rosemary to say, "Thank you for your tips. It solved my problem. Have a nice day." Yay! I love it when we hear from folks who say, look, it worked. It did what you said it was going to do. And now Thomas is nice and warm upon waking. And I think that's fantastic. All right. Up next, we've got some feedback and questions before we round things out with our app caps. All right, it's time for feedback and questions. Kevin writes in, "Hi, Mikah and Rosemary. Big fan of the show. I miss Leo, but Rosemary is a great addition because of your knowledge and wonderful presenter skills." I agree. Rosemary's awesome. Or excuse me, Rosemary is remarkable. I have an issue that started happening, I believe, with iOS 15. When I'm in one app or online, I click a link that should open an app. For example, a link to a Twitter tweet or an Amazon link. I used to click these and the app would open. So what Kevin's talking about here is occasionally when you're on a certain page, Instagram is a good example, Twitter's another example, there'll be this little banner that pops up at the top with the Twitter or whatever app it is icon on the left, and then on the right, there's an open button. And you're supposed to be able to press that button and then it will open within that app. It says, but now it opens the App Store even though I already have the app. I would love to know if you have a solution or fix for this issue. Here's a list of what I've tried. Kevin has tried uninstalling the apps that this commonly happens with. They've tried restarting the phone. They've tried force quitting the app that improperly redirects the link like Safari or Gmail or Apple Mail, and nothing is working for Kevin. Kevin, I've got to say, I've had this happen to me before too, particularly with YouTube for some reason, where instead of opening the YouTube app, it will mine will just go to Safari and open the web page. But I have had it happen a couple of times with less well-known apps where it will launch the App Store to that app instead of just launching the app like I want it to. Rosemary has one suggestion. My suggestion was going to be based on the things that I've seen, that it's just a thing that sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. But maybe, Rosemary, you've got the solution for this.
Yeah, so I ran into this on my mom's iPad the other day, and I realized when I was poking around what she'd done that created this problem. And I can't guarantee that this is the problem you're running into, Kevin. It might not be, but it's worth a shot. It could be that you're in private browsing mode in Safari, or that you've got some privacy settings enabled that are preventing apps from seeing this information. So a great way to tell if you are in private browsing mode, if you're in Safari in light mode, the menu bar is dark, and when you tap it, it comes up with this private browsing mode. Now, a lot of people use private browsing mode because they think it means that, their data is not being sent anywhere. If you log into a website, it's still going to send them information. It just means that the history is not being tracked, cookies aren't being kept, and that you don't actually get a great user experience in Safari some of the time. It's great if you want to, search for something and then throw it away afterwards. If you're checking out your friend's weird website that they've created and you don't know yet if it's going to be one of those weird things that redirects you to YouTube rickrolls, or if it's not, then, private browsing mode is pretty good. But it often means that when you tap on the open button, it won't redirect you. So if you are in Safari private browsing mode, tap on the tab icon, tap at the bottom, and then go to tabs, and then you're back in your normal browsing mode. And then here, if I tap on open app, it takes me to that post on Instagram, which is my friend's dog, who apparently was having great fun remaking their bed for them at the weekend. So that is certainly worth a try. Other than that, especially for things like Twitter, if you've got any other apps installed, like I have Tweetbot installed, then you may actually find that they have app extensions which are trying to redirect things. And if you've got conflicting app extensions, then that's going to cause a problem. So for example, if you have the Twitter app and Tweetbot installed, then Twitter is going to try and take precedence over Tweetbot. So you might want to just go through, obviously Instagram's only got one app, Amazon's only got one app, so that you shouldn't be running into the problem on those. But have a look and see if maybe for things like Twitter, you've got multiple different apps and disable some of them. Or if you don't like the Twitter app and you just had it installed because it kept trying to make you install the Twitter app, you can uninstall it and use the Tweetbot extension. And Twitterific has one too. So that is certainly worth a try.
There you go. That is a good option. And then Kate has written in with a really great question. Can you help me understand these two services? Since iOS 15, Game Center appears to be used by many games. Are these two services now one? Is Game Center required now for more games? I tried Game Center years ago and quickly decided I did not wish to use it. Recent changes allow developers to require Game Center. Again, are Game Center and Apple Arcade separate services? Can I use Arcade and not use Game Center? Thanks, Kate in Michigan. This is a fair question. Game Center was something that Apple introduced a long time ago as a way for developers to easily create sort of a social aspect to their gaming platform. So there was the ability to include achievements in games where, just like if you've ever played Xbox or PlayStation, some of those games will have things where in the game, if you do X, Y, or Z, then you get an achievement, you get a trophy, and it says, some clever title, and you can share that with your friends. It's also the way to kind of track leaderboard charts, so you can see how far you've gotten in a game versus someone else. And then later, it was additionally used as the platform for recording and broadcasting gaming. And then Game Center kind of dissipated and almost entirely disappeared. And then Game Center kind of came back. It was really interesting to see it sort of wax and wane over time. But Kate is wondering about the difference between Game Center and Apple Arcade. And I think the most important thing to understand is that Apple Arcade is, of course, Google's why did I say Google? Is, of course, Apple's subscription service for playing different games. And so those games are more than likely going to use Game Center as part of it because the developers are using Apple Arcade in the first place, so they would use Apple's other tools for gaming, including Game Center. It's a very easy way to have an account, to be able to log in on different devices and sort of sync your progress. So with those built-in tools, it makes it very simple. But they don't necessarily... There's separate services that cover two separate kinds of things. One is for kind of tracking and social aspect, and I say tracking in terms of progress tracking, which is Game Center, and Apple Arcade is a subscription service for playing games. So I think it's sort of it's false to compare them in the first place, or inaccurate to compare them in the first place, or try to say that they're the same, because they are two totally different things and have two totally different feature sets and different reasons for existing. Rosemary, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, so there are some games who will want/require you to sign in to Game Center to be able to use them. And understandably, a lot of people don't really want Game Center because it seems like it's going to come with this huge social aspect that you don't want. So I thought it would be a great idea to take a moment to show people how you can change your Game Center privacy settings so you can use the games without having all of your data sent everywhere. So if you go into the settings app and you scroll down until you find Game Center, then you'll find that you can set up a profile. And this profile picture here is totally different to the one that I use for my iCloud account. And in fact, all of the things here, except for my email address, are actually separate. And so I can change my nickname. I've left it as my name because that's what I do. But you'll see here, friends is a lovely round number. I have no friends on here. And that is on purpose. This is designed. I can see recently played with. I played with no players recently. And I can see some friend suggestions, including some people you might know, Mikah, Matthew Casanelli. I hear
he's always on mine too, which is funny.
Yeah. But what you can do now is you can go down into privacy and settings. And this is where you'll want to go to make sure that things are set up so that you can play the games without everybody seeing everything. So your profile privacy, you've got three options: everyone, friends only, or only you. And if you set it to only you, then only you can see this. Multiplayer invites, turn it off. You don't want nearby players to be able to invite you to games. And connect with friends, you can turn that off as well. And then you can use Game Center without all of your data going places. But it does mean that things like game progress can be restored when you get a new device, or, for example, synced between devices. Sometimes they use Game Center to do that. And you can go through and have a look at some of those games that you played, including some blasts from the past, like the original Angry Birds is in here. And Clumsy Ninja. I've not played that in so long.
Oh
but
my
there
God,
are,
Clumsy Ninja. Wow.
I know. There are
Throwback.
some blasts from the past in here, but fortunately, I'm the only person that can see that. Now, I wouldn't necessarily mind other people seeing it, but especially if you don't really want to use Game Center, it's good to know that you can turn most of it off, and then still be able to play the games that do use it.
Yep, agreed. I think I have my Game Center is pretty public, and I have added friends before, but that's because I've got family across the country that having Game Center a little more public makes it easier to be able to play those different games with them. And I've done some testing with Game Center before that required me to be a little bit more public. Alrighty, folks, with that, we enter the final segment of the show, which is the App Cap segment. This is the part of the show where we wear silly caps atop our head to honor our app picks of the week. These are the apps that we are using now or have used for a long time that we love and adore, and we want to share with all of you. Rosemary Orchard, tell us about the cap atop your head, and then tell us about your pick of the week.
Well, the cap atop my head is actually a hat, and it's a glittery sort of top hat, bowler hats. Well, it's more of a top hat
beautiful.
style number. And it's even got sequins around the edge. It's a lovely silver with some, like, bits on, and then ribbon, and then a black brim with silver sequins, just to really make everything so much more fun. And my app for today is a little one that's, a free app that can be kind of handy for just, planning your day without necessarily being too precise about things. And it's called Hour Blocks Day Planner. And so what happens with Hour Blocks is you can go in and you can actually have a look at your day, and you can go back and pick things. So if I went back to yesterday, I would see things, and then there are some, and then I can pop onto today, and I can see that record iOS today is currently ongoing. So here it is 6:20 in the evening, and I've got this in my calendar until 7:15 to make sure I've got plenty of time. And I've got ballet later, so I need to make sure that I am ready in time for ballet. But I could add a block into my day, and you'll see here that I've only got blocks for the remaining time of my day. And if I pop into, say, tomorrow, then I'll see everything in tomorrow. So I will see some of the work events, and then I can see all of my different time blocks. And I've already added one for 6 a.m. And so if I tap and hold on this one, then I can go into it and edit it and do things like change the name or the icon. Or if I tap and hold, I can also reschedule it. So if I don't want to wake up at 6 a.m., maybe 8 a.m. is better, I can move it down to 8 a.m. And that's nice and easy. I can also do sub blocks. So if wake up contains, various different sections that I want to break things down into, then I can put those in there. But what I really like about this is it gives you the option to have a nice little to-do list in the app and see your schedule and then see your plan without overwhelming you. It's a very basic, simple UI. And you can even do things like control which calendars you'll see. You can take control of other things like have reminders for your hour blocks. So if you plan, right, okay, so at 2:00 tomorrow, I am going to call the doctors and I'm going to run these errands and do that stuff. You can put that in your calendar, break it down into sub blocks, and then have it remind you at the time. You can also specify what time your day should start. And so you can have midnight, 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m., and 8 a.m., 24-hour, 12-hour, or whatever your system uses time, automatic capitalization, and you can change your icon for the app. So instead of having the traditional orange icon that they have, you can have a purple one. You can have launched, which is a little more Tesla-y. I'll stick with the purple there. And you can send them feedback on Twitter and so on. But what I really like is it's a very simple day, very simple day planner where I can just see what's going on and when it's happening. So if I pop over to Saturday, then I'll see that I have no error blocks. So if I pop into Saturday, then I can go, okay, maybe at 10 a.m., I am going to, maybe I'll have brunch. I'll go out for brunch at 10 a.m. And it's automatically selected a knife and fork for me. And so maybe I'll scroll down into the evening and give it a very important test here. And it's got some suggestions for me, including the popular party. So I'm actually going to give it a little further test, and I'm just going to try cocktails. And maybe I'll end up with a very fun weekend. I didn't guess the icon for cocktails, but that's easy enough to do. I just tap edit, and then I can scroll down and have a look. And they do have a pretty drink, so that'll do. But it's nice to be able to plan my day and see how much time I have versus, wherever things are supposed to be. And I can easily tap to go back to today at any point. And I really like this for especially those days where either there's an absolute ton of stuff that needs to be done. You've got very small blocks of time and things have to happen at the right time. So you end up adding your things and then you can rearrange them as you go. Or those days which are really wide open and you don't really have plans, but you feel like you should get some stuff done. Well, being able to make some plans with hour blocks, it's a pretty nice way to get started.
Awesome. That is a really cool app. The app that I am talking about today, by the way, I have an elephant with very yellow tusks on my head today. I still don't know why they're so yellow, but alas, they are. Maybe I'll have to, sew some whiter ones because I don't think ivory is this yellow unless it's super aged. So I don't know. Anyway, off of the cap onto the app. The app that I'm talking about is Fantastical. We've talked enough about Fantastical on the show that I don't really need to show the app itself, but there's a great blog post and video that shows a new feature that is launched in Fantastical that is a built-in scheduling option. Fantastical 3.6 introduces a new scheduling method that has openings and proposals. So the way that this works is if you've ever used something like Calendly, which in some circles is controversial, but I quite like Calendly, it is a really nice way to determine when someone is available and be able to then use that to give people the ability to schedule something. So with Fantastical, if you're a Fantastical user, you can share your link. You set it up, first of all, so that it pulls from the calendars that you wanted to pull from. Because, for example, I have some calendars that are like birthdays and calendars that are tied to my delivery application that I use. So those things don't actually influence whether I'm available or not. But then I've got my work calendar and my sort of home family calendar. And so those two are involved in my special Fantastical link. I share that with someone and I say, hey, look here if you want to schedule a meeting. These are the times that I have available. The person is able to click on that link. It opens a website where they can see my available openings, and then that meeting can be scheduled. You can create different kinds of schedules. So maybe you have one, for example, if you do an interview podcast, and so you can set up your availabilities. The person can schedule a time, but then you also have one for lunch dates that you're trying to get scheduled with people. So there are different options. And what's super cool about this too, as 9to5Mac points out, thank you, Scooter X, is that this is a really privacy-focused feature. Some of those other ones that are out there, they sort of use your calendar information to help give more access to the data that you have available. It says, we specifically designed openings to put your privacy first. To calculate your availability, openings uploads the time slots you're unavailable for, but does not upload event details. Those are not uploaded to FlexiBits, which is the maker of Fantastical, whenever it's using openings. So it just looks at the blank space that's available and shows that. It doesn't pay attention to event details. The people you're organizing an event with don't have to be Fantastical users, so they don't have to create an account or anything like that. And openings just makes it very easy to schedule appointments and make sure that they're available. It's very awesome. updated my Fantastical Mac app today, and there's just a new section called Openings, and I was able to choose what apps are involved with openings and make that super simple. There's also now the ability to create or to use a different email for meeting proposals versus your account email, and all sorts of fun stuff that I think people are really going to like. So I suggest if you've got Fantastical, get that update soon. And read the FlexiBits blog post that talks about this new set of features. They've also updated proposals to make that even easier for folks that want to be able to do. If you've got, instead of just saying, hey, here's what I have available, pick any time you want, Proposals says, here are some times that I suggest, which of these is good for you. That's kind of what Proposals is for. So anyway, worth reading through the blog post and checking it out. Fantastical, $4.99 a month. You get Fantastical and you get Card Hop, which is the FlexiBits contact management app. And $39.99 a year if you want to do it that way instead. I've had Fantastical for years. Next to Do, it is the other app that I need to get anything done. If I didn't have Do and Fantastical, I'd never know what was going on and when. So I'm very thankful to both of them for that. So again, $4.99 a month for Fantastical, $39.99 a year. Very cool new features that just sets Fantastical above any other calendar app, in my opinion. So great. With that, we come to the end of this episode of iOS Today. You can email us with your questions, your Shortcuts Corner requests, your feedback, your utility apps, etc. iOS2day@twit.tv is how you get in touch. We love to have you tune in live. We've got a very active chat room, both on Discord, which I'll talk about in a second, and on IRC. To tune in live and watch us, you just go to twit.tv/live on Tuesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern, which is 9 a.m. Pacific. But we think the best way to get the show is by subscribing to the show, which you can do by going to twit.tv/iOS, where you'll see links to subscribe to both the audio and video versions of the show. You just click to subscribe, and then you choose your platform, be it YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, all the different places. We try to be there and ready for you. We think the video version is how you get as absolutely the most you can out of the show, but we do our best to make the audio version just as understandable. So we give plenty of detail and descriptions of what we're talking about on the show in case you're not able to see the video version of the show. Now's a good time to mention Club Twit. Club Twit is I just mentioned the Discord earlier. Again, I'll talk about that in just a sec, but Club Twit is a $7 a month subscription that gets you all of Twit's shows ad-free. Yes, free of all ads for every single Twit show. You also get access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else, including AMAs with Mary Jo Foley, Georgia Dow, yours truly, Mikah Sargent, Jason Howell, all sorts of really interesting folks. Steve Gibson have hopped on the AMAs, and we've got lots of other content there as well. And then last but not least is access to the Discord server. If you're asking, what is a Discord server? Well, if you've ever used Microsoft Teams or Slack, you'll be familiar with the way that this kind of works. It's just a place to go and chat with your fellow Club Twit members, and then also those of us here at Twit. In fact, it's one of the best ways to send in your feedback and questions. Rosemary Orchard is very active in the Discord, and we get a lot of great thoughts and questions and stuff there. So twit.tv/clubtwit, $7 a month to check it out. And then also, if you are an Apple Podcasts listener and you would like to support the show directly, if you find the audio feed of iOS Today in Apple Podcasts, you can tap to subscribe for $2.99 a month to the audio feed. And in doing so, you will get an ad-free version of our show. So audio version of the show, subscribe there for the ad-free version. Rosemary Orchard, if folks want to follow you online and check out all the great work you're doing, where do they go to do so?
Best place is rosemaryorchard.com, which has links to all the things I do online and the places you can find me, or you can just find me on Twitter at Rosemary Orchard. And of course, I'm hanging out in the Club Twit Discord in the iOS Today channel on a frequent basis. What about you, Mikah?
I am at Mikah Sargent on many a social media network, or you can head to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUAHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online. Thank you all for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you got some use out of this utility episode, and we will see you next week. Goodbye.
Did you spend a lot of money on your brand new smartphone and then you look at the pictures on Facebook and Instagram and you're like, what in the world happened to that photo? Yes, you have. I know. It happens to all of us. Well, you need to check out my show, Hands On Photography, where I'm going to walk you through simple tips and tricks that are going to help make you get the most out of your smartphone camera or your DSLR or mirrorless, whatever you have. And those shots are going to look so much better. I promise you. So make sure you're tuning in to twit.tv/hop for Hands On Photography to find out more.